Good evening. Welcome to the Glazov Gang. Tonight, Jeremy Boring, the Executive Director of Friends of Abe and the Managing Editor of TruthRevolt.org, the new conservative media watchdog group created by Ben Shapiro with David Horowitz at the David Horowitz Freedom Center. Jeremy is also the filmmaker of the new film, The Arroyo, which is a modern Western depicting one man's struggle against lawlessness on our southern border. Jeremy, welcome to the Glazov Gang.
Very glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's an honor and a privilege to have you here.
Thank you.
I've been studying your career the last couple of days, and in terms of your
It took you a couple of days to study my career.
I
studied my own career in the drive over. Yeah.
But I've been studying the success. Tell me if you agree with my analysis in terms of the peaks, okay?
Okay.
Executive Director of Friends of Abe, The Arroyo, Managing Editor of TruthRevolt.org, and then the appearance on the Glazov Gang. My analysis is correct?
I would not argue with your analysis.
Okay. Well, that's a little bit ambiguous. But from my fantasy world now to the world of reality, TruthRevolt.org.
Yes, sir.
Ben Shapiro has said that it is designed to, quote, unmask leftists in the media for who they are, destroy their credibility with the American public, and devastate their funding bases. Jeremy, conservatives have a problem overall with fighting political war, fighting the culture war. This sounds like really strong political war. Conservatives are doing it now. Ben Shapiro's leading the way. Tell us about TruthRevolt.org.
Yeah, well, in addition to the fact that Ben signs my paychecks, I'm also a huge fan of Ben Shapiro. I think that he's just a unique voice in our culture and in our fight right now, and he's the unique occupies a unique space between David Horowitz and Andrew Breitbart, which are two great mentors of his as a young conservative growing up in Los Angeles. From Andrew, he gets this incredible instinct for how media operates, and from David, he gets an understanding of political warfare, as you say. I mean, David literally wrote the book on political warfare, and I think Ben is a natural heir in that fight with those great tactics that David's been championing for so long. Ben understands the left, and he understands their tactics, and he's not afraid. He often gives a speech in which he quotes President Obama. Ben's not afraid to punch back twice as hard.
Jeremy, Ben also says that now with TruthRevolt.org and, of course, everything else that he's been doing at Breitbart and other places, but right. TruthRevolt.org is now really going to take the battle to the left's quote-unquote home turf.
Yeah.
Why is the media, why is Hollywood, why is this all their home turf? There's been a gap, there's been a black hole somewhere where, well, maybe that's not the complete right analogy, but there's been an empty space where conservatives are not fighting properly.
Well, I think that fundamentally conservatives don't appreciate storytelling. And it's probably because we're law and order types, conservatives. You know, we try to be authentic, we try to do what we're supposed to do all that we've said we're going to do. We try not to encroach on other people. And part of that means that we don't like any hint of deception. And, you know, for all of history, there's been an understanding that fiction at least flirts with deception. And storytelling flirts with deception. And so conservatives just aren't naturally drawn to it. And I would say it's a real mistake, because I think that sometimes conservatives are so focused on making sure that they tell the lowercase t truth that they miss the opportunity to tell the uppercase T truth. And, you know, that's ultimately what the media is. The media is a device that allows you to tell the capital T truth by using flourishes and fictions that maybe we aren't quite comfortable with. When you go into a movie theater and someone jumps out from behind the bush with the knife and the scary music plays, you feel fear. But in reality, you're sitting comfortably in a very safe environment in a movie theater surrounded by other very safe people. But that movie, even though it is fiction, can still communicate something fundamentally and deeply and importantly true. But it's not natural for conservatives. And I think that we need to, it's obviously a battle space that we've forfeited to our detriment, and it's definitely a battle space that we need to move into, that we're trying to move into with the work that we're doing culturally with the Arroyo, the movie, as you said, but also at Truth Revolt, because media is storytelling, not in the same fiction context as a movie, but it's still storytelling, and conservatives aren't good at it.
Okay, well, Jeremy, let's just crystallize this one theme here, because in your work you talk about how audiences have to be aware that, quote, art seeks to move them towards some sort of ideal.
All art is propaganda.
So all art is propaganda?
Absolutely. You know, when Michelangelo painted the Sistine Chapel, I don't know that that communicates to us anything about his own views regarding God. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. It certainly, though, communicates the views of the Catholic Church about God. That's who paid him. And art has always been a patronage system where wealthy men paid talented men to make themselves look better, to present the best version of themselves and of their ideals to the world. That's still what art is today.
But Jeremy, then the problem is if 99% or 99.9999% of the people that are creating quote-unquote art today, let's say in Hollywood, if they're all leftists, that's a problem.
It's a real problem.
I mean, every time I turn on a movie, a Catholic priest is being demonized.
Yeah.
Then something is being negative being said about a Jewish person or about a Mormon or about the CIA or about a white person. But there's all these themes. There's an attack on established institutions and every religion in the world except Islam, etc., etc. I know you know all this. So this is a problem in academia, in our media, in Hollywood, etc. TruthRevolt.org represents very much now the movement where conservatives are going to try to get involved in the culture.
Well, what Truth Revolt is attempting to do is to hold the left to its own standards. And, you know, it's funny, when we have activists at Truth Revolt, we call them our special ops members, our special ops team. What it is, it's about 1,000 people who volunteered to give us 3 minutes a day, 3 days a week, to engage in some piece of activism. It's part of the Breitbart legacy, right, which is to give ordinary, average Americans, people who don't have the opportunity to sit here in a television studio and sort of wax on about their philosophy, but to give that ordinary American the opportunity to make his own voice heard. And so that's part of Ben's brilliance at Truth Revolt, is to have this team. And we give them, you know, we point them in the right direction. When Martin Bashir makes some sort of vitriolic statement, sexist statement about Sarah Palin, we let our special ops team know that happened, and we give them the email address and the phone number of MSNBC, for example, so that they can make their voices heard there. But occasionally, we've given them something that a few of them have thought was a bit frivolous. You know, something that was funny to Ben and I, might be a good place to get in a jab. And one particular activist wrote to us, and he said, you know, this doesn't seem like a serious topic, on one of the action alerts that we had sent out. He said, I want to only be involved in the serious battle. And I wrote him back, and I said, you know, it's all serious, but none of it is serious. You know, there is something cheeky about what we're doing at Truth Revolt, because at the end of the day, we're conservatives. We believe in free speech. We believe that even the left should say what they believe. And in fact, we believe in a marketplace of ideas. We actually think that our ideas are better, and that if they have the opportunity to say their position and we have the opportunity to say our position, people are going to choose our position because it's right.
You know, it's interesting. Somebody recently in New York on the liberal side said there's no room for conservatives of a certain leaning even to live in that state.
Exactly.
Right? And yet conservatives like you will show that tolerance, that both sides should be allowed to speak.
But there's a problem that Truth Revolt seeks to correct, and that's that for the last 60 years, the left, through the ascendancy of political correctness, has gotten in the business of defining speech codes, not for themselves, but for the right. A classic example, Alec Baldwin, who's an MSNBC host, obviously one of the great actors of the last generation, in my opinion. I'm a huge fan of Alec Baldwin's acting work, but his show on MSNBC, very left-wing, and he's a part of this left-wing establishment that sets speech codes for the right. And yet, when he's angry, he uses anti-gay slurs, as we all know now. Truth Revolt jumped on that story and said, you know, if you're going to say what can and can't be said, those same rules have to apply to you too.
Right.
That's what we're trying to do, and that's why I say it's all a little cheeky. Because at the end of the day, as conservatives, we want to live in a world where anybody on the left is free to say whatever they want to say, and the people are welcome to make their own decisions. But I call it mutually assured destruction. I say the only thing worse than using a nuclear weapon is letting nuclear weapons be used against you. And for 60 years, conservatives have let the left storm our beachheads, nuke our cities with these speech codes and these constraints, such that you turn on Fox News and you see advertisements for they're almost infomercials for products. You turn on MSNBC, you see Fortune 500 companies routinely advertising their products. Why is that the case? Why would Fortune 500 companies advertise on a network with half the ratings of their competition and then not with Fox News itself? And the answer is because Media Matters and other organizations have made it impossible for advertisers to advertise on the right. We want to use those same weapons against the left, not to silence them, but to convince them that these weapons shouldn't be used. Ben has said it from the very beginning. The day that Media Matters hangs up their spurs, we'll hang ours up right beside them, and we'll all go back into the marketplace of ideas and let the truth speak for itself. Until that time, though, somebody has to make sure that they don't have an unfair advantage, as they have for the last 40 years.
Jeremy, very exciting that conservatives are starting to stand up for some of these things because the left has dominated. Tell us about a few of the victories and successes that Truth Revolt has had recently. You mentioned Baldwin. There's been some other successes. Yeah, and congratulations, by the way, because in a brief amount of time, you guys are making a big difference.
Yeah, the website is less than 5 months old. We have terrific traffic. Millions of people visit the site. Every month, as I said, we have 1,000 special ops volunteers. That's a number that we hope to grow with a new membership initiative that we'll be launching here in the coming weeks. And we've been a part of some great and successful battles. The Alec Baldwin battle, the Martin Bashir battle with MSNBC, as well as we mentioned in a different context at the beginning of the segment. We were, very early in Truth Revolt's existence, we got the LA Jewish Journal to put out an apology, the first in their history, for a very unseemly cartoon that they ran of a Tea Party patriot during the time of the government shutdown being depicted as a suicide jihadist, a suicide bomber, and basically making the suggestion that the Tea Party wants to destroy the country, which of course is a horrible misrepresentation of the facts. And so, we're picking fights that we think that we can be successful at, and we're holding the left to their own standard, and we want other people to join us in that cause. Not only in the media, although that's where Truth Revolt is focused, but really in the culture at large.
And absolutely, Jeremy. And one of the problems, one of the things I'm very irritated by in large realms of the conservative movement, among many conservatives, I kind of don't belong in a lot of their worlds. I just grew up in a down-to-earth environment. I like Sean Penn. I like him as an actor. I liked him in Mystic River. I like Morgan Freeman in his movies. I live life. Not everything is political for me. I like some rap music. I might like some hip-hop here or there. I don't think about, there's portions of just life that you participate in the human condition. And my point is that, for instance, when I verbalize these things sometimes in certain gatherings, I'll say, oh, it was funny, Chris Rock said in this interview with Bill Maher that, and they'll say, you watch that? I would never watch that. Yeah. Or, that Sean Penn in this movie, and they say, oh, I turned that off. Oh, I canceled my cable. Or, sometimes even I'll say something about Obama on Facebook, and conservatives will write on my page, I turned it off. I won't even watch. And I always think, maybe that's why the left dominates. And precisely because that is why it dominates. Because you think that tuning out and canceling your cable is a way that, things are going to go right. And sorry, my tirade is almost over, but at the recent Restoration Weekend, in the introduction you gave to the panel, Taking Back the Culture, you made a very important point that we need to talk the language of the American people, which you said that Ronald Reagan did. And we have to participate. That's my lead-in for you, Jeremy.
Well, two things about that. One, when conservatives try to boycott art, when they think that they can change Hollywood by just not watching Sean Penn movies, first of all, they deprive themselves of some of the great movies, because Sean Penn is a fantastic
Yeah, we're
actor.
not just doing this for political reasons.
That's
we're
right.
living.
We're living human beings. But it's more than that. It's that conservatives proceed from two false notions. One, that because they don't engage something, that means that it has no power. The truth is their children are watching 40 hours a week of film and television. That's a full-time job of being propagandized by art that, as you said, is exclusively made or almost exclusively made by the left. They also go to public schools, most of them, for another 40 hours a week. That's 80 hours. That's 2 full-time jobs of being propagandized by the left. A good parent might spend 15 minutes a day in meaningful conversation with their kids. I mean, they say more, you grab your lunch box, or what time are you going to be home, or what time's practice over. That's not meaningful conversation. I mean, actually communicating your values to your children. A religious parent might take their kids to church once a week. A very religious parent might take their kid to church twice a week. That's a total of less than 4 hours a week competing with 80. So first of all, your boycott is not effective when you don't engage in media, because your kids do. And they don't have the discernment that you have to have made the decision not to watch Sean Penn, as an example. But it's more than that. It proceeds from the false notion that Hollywood is a business, that it can be deprived of its support base monetarily, and then that will cause it to wither and go away. But as I said, all art is a patronage system. It's always been a patronage system. Even now, even Hollywood, with the huge amount of money that flows through Hollywood, it's still, at the end of the day, a patronage system. The Lord of the Rings movies never showed a profit on paper. Harry Potter movies make $1 billion each, and they never show a profit on paper. Hollywood, it's sort of like aviation, the old joke, if you want to make a large fortune in aviation, start with a larger fortune in aviation. And the same thing is true about the movie industry. It's a patronage system. People who want to communicate certain ideas get involved in the arts, and they do communicate those ideas. So I would just challenge those conservatives who maybe think that the answer is not to engage in film and television. The opposite is true. You need to engage even more in film and television. Instead of just not giving Hollywood your money, you need to give that money to a parallel Hollywood, to people who make movies that do support your values. And again, to quote Andrew Breitbart, I think part of the genius of Andrew Breitbart is that he understood that we have to turn the average American citizen into journalists. We live in an age where every one of us has a high-res camera and a 720 HD camera on our cell phones. We are the people now who get to speak truth to power, who get to hold the powerful accountable. We have to engage in the culture.
Very powerful indeed, and thank you so much for making this effort at truthrevolt.org. We have come to the end of our first segment. We will be back for our second segment with Jeremy Boring, where we continue to discuss truthrevolt.org, and we're also going to talk about his film, The Arroyo. Join us then.